Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. House Speaker Mike Johnson, hours ahead of a vote on a government funding bill that all of Washington expects to fail. He's linked it to voting legislation with limited support among Republicans, but the speaker says it's up to his colleagues across the aisle.
If the government shuts down and he refuses to move that bill, it's on him. The Democrats will have shut the government down, not the Republicans. We're doing our job.
And actor Mark Duplass plays a staffer on a morning show on TV, but he bets on himself as a creator.
What we're seeing in the business right now, unfortunately, is the death of the streaming wars.
He gives us a frontline view of the streaming wars.
They made too much stuff, they spent too much money, they're not profitable, and now they are freaking out.
Plus, Google wins an antitrust fight in Europe, negotiating the price of your Ozempic and eliminating the cap on state and local taxes, popular in surprising places.
I certainly didn't get a tax cut. I'm not a fat cat.
It's Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We're live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernan. Andrew is off today. It is a Fed day, and I know you hate all eyes, but I would almost say all eyes, at least in the financial markets, are on this today. In the financial markets, if you qualify with that.
Total eyes in the country.
Probably not.
A few eyes.
Yeah, okay. This is something that'll make nightly news tonight. They'll make mention of it. So it hits the broader population.
I don't want to characterize any fellow countrymen as deplorables or rubes or anything, but I think the total percentage of people watching moves by the central bank is very, very tiny. Definitely not an all eye.
All eyes in the financial market.
On a roulette wheel,
no more bets. Yeah, you can wait before
it's still spinning,
and that's
it's
kind
like
of
you
where
can.
we are, right?
I have no idea how late because you can get on there pretty late.
But they do let it go around for a while. This is no more bets.
They do.
Kind of see.
Well, if you were running a wheel where you had to get one number out of 32 and people were trying to get that, when you let them, I would let it
36 and
whatever.
There's
Yeah,
zero and double
it's
zero.
impossible to win anything.
Numbers.
If I were the house, I'd just let that keep going. Bet as much as you want. The European Union's General Court said earlier today that a $1.7 billion fine imposed on Alphabet should be annulled. In 2019, European regulators accused Google of abusing its market dominance in advertising by imposing restrictive clauses in those contracts with third-party websites. It said those clauses prevented rivals from placing their search ads on those websites. Ruling on Alphabet's appeal, the EU court upheld the majority of the findings by regulators, but annulled the fine, saying the commission failed to take into consideration all the relevant circumstances in its assessment of the duration of the contract clauses that it deemed abusive, and the regulators could appeal the decision all the way up to the EU's top court.
And this one I was kind of shocked by. You never expect to hear the EU overruling fines that have been set out against American companies. They always lose on those. So that was an interesting point. It was newsworthy, I thought. Caught me off guard.
Did it make you happy?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I know. I get happy too. It's like,
oh, good.
A lot of times I feel like saying, just leave us alone.
Stop
would
bullying.
you? Yeah. Billionaire hedge fund founder Steve Cohen is no longer trading for his firm. Point72 Asset Management. He remains co-chief investment officer, but is no longer investing clients' capital. A spokesperson said Cohen remains as engaged as ever, and that the only change is that he'll spend less time in front of his computer screens and more time working with the investment teams and developing talent. Cohen rebuilt his hedge fund into one of the world's biggest after an insider trading scandal. I didn't see what happened yesterday, but let me just check did you check the wild card standings, Becky? Or no?
I did not.
You didn't?
No.
Where are they? Who's in there? Cantina? Let me just see. They're up on the Diamondbacks. They look good. At this point, they're in. No one would have believed it. They had to really turn things around. They're 83 and 68 right now, and they've been doing well recently. Are you excited? Mets, the amazing Metsies. You like?
I don't like the Mets.
You like the Yankees?
Actually, more of a White Sox fan, but
Oh, that's been fun for you this year. Let me just see.
winning ugly back in the '80s.
Well, they're not winning now. I have done okay a couple of times with the White Sox, but in general, that has not been a good team to be. Let me just see where they are. They're dead last. Whoa. Do you know what the record is? 36.
Do you even know what I'm whistling?
Yeah.
No,
I
just ignoring
miss
me.
out. 36 and 116. You're giving me time to find these things out.
Yeah.
36 wins, 116
That's pretty
losses.
bad.
Why would you be a White Sox fan?
I don't know. Why do you like the Jets? Why do you like any? You're a loyal
Really like the
fan, whether
Jets.
you can be on board with them.
I like the Bengals. This is
Yeah.
Jim Nantz would say.
Yeah.
Bengals, Bangles, Bungles. Ozempic is very likely, it says here, to be one of the drugs targeted for a price cut in bargaining with the U.S. government's Medicare program. That's according to comments from a senior executive from Novo Nordisk. This was at the Cantor Global Healthcare Conference yesterday. Probably not surprising. The Inflation Reduction Act allows the U.S. to directly negotiate drug prices with manufacturers. In the first round of bargaining earlier this year, it slashed the cost of 10 of the world's biggest medicines by anywhere from 38 to 79% for 2026. And the next 15 drugs targeted for negotiations are expected to be named by early next year. And always good to have Gottlieb on, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, because he talks about exactly what it means, and it doesn't mean anywhere near those numbers when you take in the way that there's middlemen and PBMs and
Right.
when it comes into effect and what the actual discounted price is. If the actual discounted price isn't anywhere what you're pretending is the list price, then the discount is nowhere near what you're saying you're getting. It's just a little bit below what it already is. But, you know, I have mixed feelings. I see the drug companies spend a lot of money on advertising, but it is expensive to develop new drugs, and a lot of them don't work. So there is some good number that probably, you know, would cause some better behavior from drug companies, but I don't want to, kill the goose.
I don't either,
Like
and I
the golden
agree
egg.
with your assessment of mixed feelings. I don't want to do anything that cuts innovation in this country. I think
Right.
it's been a great lifeblood. However, a lot of the new drug development has come through mergers. You buy these drugs or you partner up with
Somebody spent money, but then the other thing is that sometimes they spend a lot of money on extending the patent through some,
Yes, creepy way of,
within
like,
the law, it's an XL release or this or that, which gives you, another couple of years. Of
It does
patent
seem like the drug
protection.
companies have been pretty beat up, though.
And then you spend the advertising to get people, oh, really, I want that extent, I need that one. And, doctors go along with it, you think sometimes. So there's stuff that goes on. But
I mean, I would assume that this is something that's going. I don't know. What has Donald Trump said about what he would do? He's talked about rolling back the IRA. Is this part of what he would roll back? The negotiations with drug companies too.
I think he probably would think that there's waste in Medicare. So if you were able to let Medicare negotiate,
You had to pause.
Yeah.
You're not sure. You're not sure
I'm not sure
where
of what
any of
anyone's
these
going to
candidates
do.
where he comes down on anything because he's not a traditional.
Well, we talked
Republican
about
who
the
goes through
SALT
this.
thing, so we'll
He's
talk
the one who
about
put it
that.
into play. The SALT.
It was in the 2017. It was written by Congress. He signed it. That's for sure. But for anyone, whenever anyone says that the fat cats benefited from the Trump tax cuts, I guess they're talking about corporations, which I think that the tailwind from the corporate tax cut is part of what makes the economy so strong still to this day. I still think that's part of it. I certainly didn't get a tax cut. I'm not a fat cat, but if you're in a blue state, and
that's the time. It was very
just do the
politicized
math.
at the times. It was the red states going to punish the blue state for
Right.
not being more able to control costs in their own states.
Right.
And just because
It's just really simple. You just do, you do what state taxes in New Jersey can get as high as 11.5%. So do some math, and then if you used to be able to take that, come right off your federal income tax, If you have to pay it now, half of it used to come off. So whatever that number is, you're adding it in, and it can be a big number.
Ozempic, does that mean Wegovy and the others are also going to be targeted?
You would think it would be the class, but maybe they could
yeah.
do it. They could do it just one at a time, I guess.
All right, former President Trump vowing to get SALT back if he's reelected. This is what we were just talking about, those state taxes. He said he would eliminate the cap on state and local tax deductions that he signed into law in 2017. In a post on Truth Social focused on New York voters, he said, "Vote for Trump. I will turn it around, get SALT back, lower your taxes, and so much more." The Trump campaign did not immediately respond to follow-up questions from CNBC. Those 2017 tax cuts capped SALT deductions at $10,000, which took a higher toll on taxpayers in blue states with higher state and local tax rates like New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, California, all of those states.
Would it cap? I mean, there are other deductions that were capped as well. W-2 earners basically have no deductions anymore. So if you as a highly paid TV person, you have an agent maybe. Some TV people have agents, and
It never made sense to why you could write that off as a business expense, but you used to be able to, and then you couldn't.
Yeah, you used to be able to. Why? Because it should be the bloodsucker write-off or what?
Leech.
Agents are important at different times in your career. Because management, as great as management is, and is always thinking about us, which they just do, I think 24 hours a day.
I'm going to keep myself out of this.
You are going to keep yourself.
In the next hour, we're going to talk tax policy, la 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 la, and much more with House
You want a guy like
Mike
Ari.
Johnson.
You want a guy like Ari on your side.
Cheese will be next.
Yes, next on Squawk Pod, House Speaker Mike Johnson bringing another funding bill to the floor ahead of a key September 30th deadline. This one includes a few things beyond keeping the government open, like his proposal to require proof of citizenship when new voters register.
We have to make sure that before someone registers to vote, they prove that they are a U.S. citizen because that is existing federal law. And there's no mechanism currently for that to happen. That's why the SAVE Act is so important.
Welcome back to Squawk Pod. I'm producer Katie Kramer. The U.S. House of Representatives is set to vote on a short-term funding bill. Again, sound familiar? Countdown to shutdown? But this time, it's probably not going to pass. Here's why. After pulling a bill from consideration last week, Speaker Mike Johnson is sending the same stopgap funding bill to the floor for a vote from members today. Attached to the bill, the SAVE Act, legislation requiring proof of citizenship to vote, which has been backed by former President Trump, but not all conservatives. States have multiple safety nets to ensure that non-citizens do not vote in elections. It's a federal crime, as well as a crime in all 50 states to do so. And actual cases of non-citizens risking jail time to vote are exceedingly rare. In addition, Republican Party leadership know that today's vote on this version of funding is going to fail. And once it does, it's back to the drawing board to design a clean bill for funding just through the end of the year. Joe Kernan takes things from here.
Joining us now to talk about this and more, House Speaker Mike Johnson. Mr. Speaker, it's good to see you. It's been a while. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Can't imagine why any Republican would not want to support something like that. I don't know where it would go from there. I don't really understand the other side either with not requiring proof of citizenship to vote, especially with what we've seen at the southern border. It just plays into all the conspiracy theories that's what Democrats are trying to do here. So the whole thing is confounding to most U.S. citizenry, Mr. Speaker. But why do some Republicans, they just don't like CRs in general? Is that what it is?
I think that's it for a handful of them. Here's the thing. Congress has an important and immediate obligation to do two big things. One is to keep the government funded. Obviously, that's our responsibility, and also to ensure the security of our elections. The CR is the vehicle to do that, and that is why, because we owe this to the American people, we're going to add that and bring it to the floor today to move that forward. Look, I'm going to try with everything within me to get this passed because we owe it to the people. I've been traveling the country nonstop, Joe. I've been at campaign events so far in 206 cities across 40 states in the last several months. No matter where we are, in every public setting, the first or second question from the audience is, can we count on the security of the election? And Congress has an obligation to do this. It's about a 90% issue on the polls. It's not partisan. Only U.S. citizens should vote in U.S. elections. That, to your point, should not be controversial. So we're going to move that forward. We're going to run the play today, and I certainly hope that it passes.
And then what would happen? Probably not going to pass, but let's say it does. Then what would happen? What are the prospects of it actually going all the way to where it needs to do to keep the government open? Because Republicans are not going to want anything that accidentally or inadvertently shuts down the government 49, 48 days before the election.
Right. And if we pass this today, we will be funding the government, and it will extend it for 6 months. So we have time to solve and resolve all these issues. And after the election, I'm convinced that we'll have unified government. We are going to grow the House majority. We are going to take back the Senate for the Republican Party. And I believe Donald J. Trump is going back for a second term. And so in the first quarter of next year, we will be able to responsibly address the spending issues and all the things and the priorities that we want to do in those appropriations processes. So I think this is a very important thing. If we pass it today, we send it over to the Senate. Chuck Schumer then has it on his desk. If the government shuts down and he refuses to move that bill, it's on him. The Democrats will have shut the government down, not the Republicans. We're doing our job.
Well, the Senate has passed their own, will look into passing their own version, and it will go back and forth. I mean, the reality is you could have a shutdown in 13 days. What happens in that scenario? And I'm asking also because a strategist earlier this morning said, what's your plan B?
Look, I'm the quarterback on the field in the middle of the game. We are calling the play and we're running it. So I'm not addressing plan Bs. We got a big playbook. It's full of ideas. No one needs to worry. But we have to do the right thing. And I'm convinced this is, on principle and on the Constitution, the exact right thing. This is an actual live fire problem, because what's happening around the country right now is that the millions and millions of illegals who have come across that border since the borders are Kamala Harris and Joe Biden opened it wide, is that some of them are trying to register to participate in the election. Many of them. We know 6 or 7 states have already done their own audits. They've proven you've got thousands and thousands of illegals on the voter rolls right now. And here's the problem. You know, if you have just a small percentage of those millions of people that try to participate, you can throw the outcome of the election. You can throw the outcome of who has the majority in the House. I have a colleague who won her seat in Congress in 2020 by 6 votes. I've got another Republican colleague, won his race by about 250 votes. It's easy to throw these things off, and you could even affect the outcome of a presidential cycle, depending on where all those illegals are participating. Some of these swing states are a real concern. So we have to make sure that before someone registers to vote, they prove that they are a U.S. citizen, because that is existing federal law. And there's no mechanism currently for that to happen. That's why the SAVE Act is so important.
Yeah, 43,000 votes in I don't know how many swing states, and that was the presidential election. It's given all we've been through, we don't need the integrity of our elections being questioned. That's why it's so confounding to most Americans to not understand why this. Well, I guess we do understand why one party doesn't want to do what. Senate Republicans supposedly, Mr. Speaker, are getting frustrated, and I don't know. I know there's something someone actually called a whip. I don't know what that involves. The whipping has been totally ineffective. We saw what happened with the prior speaker trying to get a new speaker. These cats are not wrangling. I said cats now. I'm hitting all the hot button issues, but it's very difficult for Republicans to get everyone in this, and Democrats to get everyone on the same page. And I know you're keeping a stiff upper lip and you don't have a plan B. But if it doesn't work, then Senate Republicans might have to work with Democrats, right, to get it done. And then I don't know what that does for you and your speakership.
We're going to get the job done. We always do, and we haven't let anybody down yet. But we have to run the right bill at the right time on the right principle, and that's what this is. Look, we do have the smallest majority in the modern era, U.S. history. Everyone knows for about 5 months we had a 1-vote margin in the House. So it's been tough sledding at times, but I'm very optimistic. The reason I'm in such a good mood is I'm convinced we are going to grow the House majority in November, and we'll have much easier sledding ahead, to put it that way. So we've been working really hard. We've got extraordinary candidates recruited all around the country. They're going to flip some of these blue Democrat seats to red, and then our incumbents are going to be reelected. And we're going to have a governing majority to move the ball forward. And we have big plans for the next Congress, a very aggressive first 100 days agenda for the Congress and beyond. We don't put the cart before the horse, but we got to be prepared to lead, and I'm really looking forward to that time.
When President Trump, former President Trump yesterday said, "Oh, get your beautiful salt back," were you like, did you know that was coming? That would, 2017, that some people think that maybe some of the tailwinds we're still seeing in American business might be because of the corporate tax cut. I happen to be one of them. I don't know what other pro-growth policies we put into effect. We haven't really put any in, but that would certainly exacerbate if you extend the 2017 cuts and you put the take away the cap on salt. That's really going to add to the deficit. Have you thought about that?
Sure, I've thought about it, but I do think it's a combination of steps that we would look to take. We want to use the tax code to really build investment and opportunity, and we know how to do that. We demonstrated it to your point, during the first couple years of the Trump administration when we brought about the greatest economy in the history of the world, not just the U.S. We did that, Joe, because we implemented the principles and the policies that we've always espoused, and that is less regulation and lower taxes. It's a pretty simple formula, and it has a great result. So we want to expand upon the Trump era tax cuts, and we want to do massive regulatory reform. One of the problems we have right now across the free market, right, is that the federal government these agencies have been weaponized against the industries that they're supposed to be assisting and regulating in a meaningful way. Under the Biden-Harris administration, they have almost smothered the free market. I mean, it's like the boot of government is on the neck of job creators and entrepreneurs and risk takers who are just trying to do their jobs. And they've made it almost impossible. So we're going to reverse that. If you get Republican leadership in the White House, the Senate, and the House, unified government, we will put this thing on turbo. You will see massive regulatory reform. We have a great opportunity. The Supreme Court has overturned the Chevron doctrine. We have all the talk about political tailwinds in a moment of opportunity. That's what we'll see in the first quarter of next year. And you're going to see a lot of change that I think will really incentivize more opportunity, more investment, more American manufacturing, detangle from China, get the border under control and stop the illegal immigration, and stop the maddening government spending that's been out of control for the last 4 years.
Okay, on that note, Speaker Johnson, government spending that's been out of control. The front page of the Wall Street Journal today lays out how plans from both candidates, Vice President Harris and former President Trump, really blow out spending in any way, shape, or form. The things that they have said on the campaign trail, the things that they are adding to. Let me just read you a list of your candidates' proposals over the last several months. You tell me if you agree with him on all of these proposals or if there's some daylight between the two of you. He would eliminate taxes on overtime pay, money that's coming in from tips, Social Security benefits, no more taxes on that. He would eliminate the SALT proposals, the caps that Joe just mentioned, eliminate or cut taxes on manufacturing in the United States for any business who's manufacturing their goods here, pay for new parents' expenses. Do you agree with all of those plans? Because they're going to cost something like $6 trillion in addition to the 217.
Yeah, I agree with all those ideas, and I think most people listening and watching this morning nod their head and say that sounds like a good idea. Now, do we need to figure out how to pay for it? Of course, and that's where responsible governance comes in. But I do think that we can implement a lot of these ideas on this menu of items to really bring relief to the American people. I mean, what President Trump is talking about on the campaign trail is that he wants to do right by middle-class, hardworking Americans. He wants to do right by seniors. I mean, these are the demographics that need that level of assistance. And how do we assist them? It's not by government
giveaways. But how do you pay for it? You said it yourself.
Well,
how do you pay for it?
Right. Well, you have to bring about a pro-growth economy. And you do that with a combination of aggressive use of the tax code and reduction in government regulation. That's how we get the economy going. You know, Joe said a moment ago he thinks the residual effects of the corporate tax cuts, for example, from the Trump administration, are one of the reasons that we're still afloat in the economy. But I think really the regulatory reform, in addition to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in the first Trump administration, our efforts at regulatory reform are really what got the economy humming. Also, energy policy. I mean, that's a huge distinction between Harris's plan, or if she even has a plan, she won't talk about it. I don't think she understands what the talking points she's saying anyway. But Donald Trump wants to return to American energy dominance. I talk to our allies around the world, our European allies, for example. They are desperate for LNG exports from America. We turn that sector back on, you're in a totally different stratosphere with regard to economic growth. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris turned it off, literally. They paused LNG exports. They've declared war on fossil fuels in our oil and gas industry. We got to bring sanity back to this, and Donald Trump will. And I think when he institutes these policies, we're going to be in a completely different situation than we are right now, and we'll have the opportunity to do a lot of these things and be very aggressive to help the people.
Nothing unprecedented anymore, nothing surprising anymore, but watching the presidential election, Mr. Speaker, do you think it's possible to take this right to Election Day and really not see Vice President Harris face questioning, just random questioning for interviews? Is it possible that you can do that and it can be successful and everybody just goes, oh yeah, well, we're not really sure what's going to happen, but anything's better than Donald Trump? That could happen, and there may not be any other interviews between now and Election Day. And it might just be she's not Joe Biden, she's not Donald Trump, but she does become president.
It's a frightening thought, and we have 48 days now to expose what her true record is. Kamala Harris is engaging in a campaign of fantasy over fact. She wants people to believe that she's some sort of, moderate policy wonk, and everyone who's watched her career knows that is not true. She had the most woke progressive left voting record in the Senate of the modern era. She was left of Bernie Sanders. She is truly a San Francisco radical, and her policies are Marxist by design. President Trump was exactly right in their debate when he labeled her a Marxist. That's not an epithet. That is an accurate description of what she would want to do. I mean, look at the litany of promises that she's made. She wants government giveaways for everything. It would completely tank the U.S. economy. She's not a serious policy person. She's saying whatever she thinks needs to be said right now to be elected. It is an act. She went out on that debate stage and she delivered lines that she had spent 50 days memorizing because she didn't do any interviews or debates or anything before that. And she delivered the lines well. That's congratulations. But it is an act. It's as if she's an actor on a stage in a play. But these are serious times. We're in the most desperate, most dangerous time since World War II on the economy, on the foreign policy front, with regard to the idea that China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are all coordinating together and seeing this as an opportunity. Our allies are nervous, our adversaries are empowered, and we need strong leadership back in the White House. This is not a game. This election is for all the marbles. And so everyone who understands this reality needs to not take anything for granted. We've got to get out, get our friends to vote, make sure our friends, our neighbors are educated on the issues. This is not about personality. It's about policy. And whoever is elected brings a whole policy set with them. This is serious, serious business.
All right, Mr. Speaker. In addition to the Fed decision, we've got the CR. So pretty busy Wednesday, and thanks for all your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to be with you as always.
Next on Squawk Pod, you might know him from The Morning Show, where he plays a stressed-out television producer, a role close to my heart, or The Mindy Project, or even further back, The League. Mark Duplass, the actor, writer, and producer who's trying to remake the streaming business, one independent creation at a time.
You can spend this much money on the next Game of Thrones sequel, or you could have 20 small shows that are all going to be lottery tickets. One of those is going to turn into your baby reindeer. You're going to look incredible for the culture, and you're going to look super smart in the business.
This is Squawk Pod.
Up and Becky, Q.
You're watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernan. Andrew is on assignment. Streaming continues to dominate Hollywood with Netflix, Max, and Apple TV Plus bringing home a majority of Emmy wins behind FX. Joining us right now to talk streaming and much more is actor, writer, and producer Mark Duplass. His latest independent series, Penelope, debuts on Netflix next week. course, he also plays Chip on The Morning Show on Apple TV Plus, which is a character we know and love well. Mark, thank you for coming.
I feel like we know you.
I know we do. It's
Thanks
a
for
weird
having
thing. Like,
Listen, I've been shadowing you guys for years, just ripping off all your great stories. That's me.
Ripping off
a few better.
the egomania that is it combined with insecurity that is talent.
It's
right?
a fascinating world to be able to play. I've been producing independent films for years. I started off, making $3 movies in my kitchen with my brother, and I know the stress of having to wrangle talent. But once I realized that, the morning show, you have this extra live element. That was really fun to be able to bring to Chip and that character.
Yeah, it's really fun here every day, too. Cool. But why don't we talk about what you're working on right now, and that is Penelope. This is something you produced independently, but now you brought it to Netflix, and that's a different sort of way about going about things.
Yeah.
First of all, what is Penelope, and why did you do it this way?
So Penelope is a story of a 16-year-old girl who's feeling a little lost and leaves behind the trappings of modern society and her technology to abscond into the woods. It's something I wrote during the pandemic. It's something I felt was deeply important for the culture. I think I have 2 daughters. I want them to see role models that aren't doing what just happens on Euphoria, which is a show that I love, but I wanted them to be able to see something else. And what we're seeing in the business right now, unfortunately, is the death of the streaming wars, okay? We've got companies like Netflix and Apple and HBO. They all went to war with each other, and they thought, I'll just beat them out and I'll emerge victorious. But they made too much stuff, they spent too much money, they're not profitable, and now they are freaking out. So the answer to that is to make homogenized content that feels like the last thing that was successful. You ever look on your streaming services and you're like, wait, this is another murder show with Nicole Kidman that's ripped from heaven. They all blend in
But that was
together.
what the movie business was for a while.
That's exactly
before
right.
Streaming, and streaming changed things.
And I'm really glad you brought that up with the movie business, because I did come up in independent film, and something beautiful happened in the 90s, which was things were becoming homogenized there. And so people were forced to go into the independent sector. And then from there, they got basically independent financiers, and a whole ecosystem sprung up around Sundance. You'd make these incredibly interesting movies like In the Bedroom for $2 million. They would go make $50 million at the box office. It was good for the culture, and it was great for business. So I am here basically trying to tell these dying streamers, look, guys, we can do what happened in independent film. We can do that in television. I just have to be willing to lose my shirt in the process in order to do it. I have to take the money I make on the morning show, go out and make a little bit more outlier art like Penelope, and bring that to them and say, listen guys, I think this can really work. And we're seeing the data here. Look at the Emmys. Baby Reindeer won some of the most awards. It's a small show with no stars that's auteur driven. So I'm trying to really encourage people to say, this is not just good content, this is good business.
Who finances it? Who looks at that and say, okay, that's something I'm willing to take?
I have a bevy of ways that I do it, but I have always come up betting on myself. So for Penelope, I financed it completely myself. But I'm doing that right now because I have to blaze the trail. And I might be like that early painter who dies of scurvy, penniless, because he blazed the trail, But I'm hoping that we can start something exciting here, And to me, I'm talking to the independent film financiers who've watched that business die and saying, come over and finance TV. Guess what? Not only do you get the initial return on your investment, if we make more seasons, you're going to have an EP credit and an EP fee. So you get this huge tail. It's like having dividends on your stocks, So I'm kind of at the beginning of this big effort.
I mean, it should be the golden age. It really should for content. And streaming just gives you an opportunity to have more people be able to air your content. I don't know where we went wrong.
Well, it's fear-based, right? And I think that if you look at any business model, not just the entertainment business, once they realize that the subscriptions are coming down, they start to bet on the things that were successful yesterday. And there's this great
sequel.
That's exactly right. And there's this great metaphor that somebody heard, and I wish I could attribute it to them, but I think it was Wayne Gretzky, where he said, I don't go where the puck is, I go where the puck's going, right?
Right.
And that's what I think we need to see a little bit more of that. But at the same time, I'm pragmatic. I don't want to have to walk into Netflix, who I've known for years, and all my friends, and say, you should spend all your money on this small show about a girl who runs off into the woods. What I want to do is make it an easy yes for them. I want to make it cheaply. I want to share my profits
good
with my
start,
main creative collaborators and live to fight another day. So I'm trying to make this an easy yes.
I mean, business and art, by definition, are strange bedfellows. And GE for a while owned NBC Universal.
Yeah.
So these guys at GE were watching movie budgets being presented to them and go over budget, and they had no idea. And they were so uncomfortable with that business. But if you think about it, that's sort of just the way it is it? Do you ever see?
I'm encouraging more healthy commingling of business and art. I have two very
that's why they
strange
do
parts of my brain.
That's where they do Game of Thrones too, because they want to try and do something that they know is going to work.
But if you bring it to them and it doesn't cost them money, they don't lose money on the proposition.
That's the key to the business model. And again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think you have to make it an easy yes for them, because these executives, they have to keep their jobs, So I don't go in there yelling at them, why aren't you making this? I go in there and say, I'm going to come in.
This is the same thing that Jason Blum told us last week when he was here.
Jason Blum is a friend of mine, and he did a really good job in the horror business with that, and he's really built an empire out of that. He's incredibly successful. I don't really have aspirations for Jason, because to me, the creative element of this at its core is who I am. But I have learned over the years that unless I am thoughtful about the business model, I'm not going to get to make my stuff.
Well, and if you went to Netflix with any other proposition, they would take over creative control at some point.
That's another big part of it, is the lower cost you make something and the more independently you make it, the more creative control you have to make what you want to make. And I truly believe that auteur-driven stuff is what they want. I'm trying to say, listen, you can spend this much money on the next Game of Thrones sequel, or you could have 20 small shows that are all going to be lottery tickets. One of those is going to turn into your baby reindeer. Right. You're going to look incredible for the culture, and you're going to look super smart in the business. Right. This is obvious to me.
And we really need it. Do you ever look through Netflix and say, there's nothing for me?
It's not just Netflix. It's everywhere.
Anyway, I mean, I can go on every stream. Oh no, another Norwegian, missing person with subtitles.
Right.
And I don't. And I've got, you ever seen You Started, Do You Want to Continue? I've got like 3 lines of stuff I've started, and I watch a half hour. It's like, this blows.
Yes, and we that's what happened to movies, relatively speaking, in the 90s with all the courtroom dramas and the rom-coms. They started to repeat themselves. And that is how that independent film sector actually birthed itself and thrived. And there is literally a whole ecosystem around it. You go to Sundance and there are buyers there, and you sell the movies. Yeah. It creates massive jobs in the city. Whole new distributors pop up. Like, this is something I really want to see happen in television. I think I'm a little early. I think I might come back here next year and be like, oh, that one didn't.
It makes business sense, though, and that's something our viewers care about.
Yeah. Streaming needs help. I mean, not everybody can have a Thursday night NFL game.
That's right.
That's how Peacock. I mean, it's working, but we need great content. We need
100%. Yeah,
and it's risky.
The Thursday night game brings them in. What's going to keep them? And they're realizing people are unsubscribing in masses. People are.
All right, you got to get back in the control room and get on.
Thank you very much. Be nice to us, Mark.
All right, thank you.
That's the pod for today. Thanks for listening. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernan, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. Get the smartest takes and analysis from our TV show right into your ears when you follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe wherever you're listening right now. Have a great Wednesday. We'll meet you back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.